Hello, Rabbi and puppies.
Hi, Rabbi Jim.
Hello, Ellen.
Hi, Rabbi Jim. Hi, Ann.
It may just be a picture of him and his dog.
Oh, he's not on yet?
Well, I'm not sure. He's probably on, but he's not. He might be muted or something. Anyway, he doesn't show that he's muted, but he's not hearing us. I'm not able to respond. Let's put it that way. Ellen, you don't have any dogs or cats, do you, in your apartment?
No.
Neither do I. I must admit, I haven't had any for 30 some years now, but my son has 2 corgis and I love them dearly.
Oh.
They gave me one of those digital camera photo frames this year, and they're pictures of the dogs and my grandsons and my sons and daughters.
Yeah, I have no dogs or cats.
Yeah. Well, I haven't for a long time either, but I do love dogs. I don't know what to do with cats. They don't seem to go for me. There's Sandra. Hello, Sandy.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I just went down and did my exercise. I went down, got my mail from yesterday, walked up the flight, one flight at a time, and down to the other end of the hall and up another flight. That really loosens up my back.
Good.
Very good. Hello, Heva. You're muted. Got to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
I always forget.
I sometimes do. Sometimes I do it on purpose. Well, because if I'm still fixing it on the morning 10 o'clock exercise, if I'm still finishing my breakfast, I don't want people to hear me. Sometimes I'll get rid of my picture too, but most of the time it's just the sound.
And what building are you in?
100 Center Street.
I'm on Beacon.
You're on 1550.
Yes.
Right next to something Zion.
TV.
Synagogue.
Yeah. Temple Beth Zion.
Beth Zion.
Yeah.
One of my friends from Portland, Oregon, Lisa Spiegel's sister and brother-in-law, who's a retired rabbi, live at 1550 or nearby. They don't live in 1550. They live nearby. She said next door to the synagogue, but next door is relative.
Yes. It's a good synagogue. It's a good group of people.
I tuned into one of their things on the high holidays, and it was nice.
Yeah, I'm part of I'm in mourning for my mother, so
I'm sorry to hear that.
yes, it's okay. She lived to 95, so
Oh wow,
That's a good long life.
yes,
not shooting for 95.
and she had a good life, so
That's good.
yes. But they have a morning minyan every morning on Zoom, and
Great.
I'm able to do my appropriate mornings for her.
Wonderful.
It is. It's called Boker Tov.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And it's very, very comforting.
That's great. Well, it is nice to have rituals to follow. And as my rabbi in Portland, Oregon used to say, maybe you don't think you're getting anything out of it, but if you keep on doing it, like if you don't light Shabbat candles, light them all every day for a year and see how you feel after that. Miss it if you don't do it. I've been doing it for years, either at home or at the synagogue. So
yeah, I'm pretty much observant as best I can. You know, you can always find.
Hi, Rabbi Morgan.
sees you, he heard you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hi.
Rabbi.
Hello, Rabbi.
Hi.
Rabbi
So nice
Morgan,
to
did you sign me up for the Seder?
All good.
What?
All good. Yes.
So I'm gonna just say, how will they bring it down to my door?
Yep. Yep.
They'll deliver it to my
Everyone-
door on the 27th?
Exactly. You'll get it on at your door on the 27th.
Are
Exactly.
you doing a Tu B'Shavat Seder?
Tu B'Shvat Seder. Exactly.
I missed that. How did I miss it?
It hasn't happened
You know-
yet.
I know, but I
Well-
didn't.
They'll bring the Seder down to my door on the 27th?
Absolutely, Ellen. 100%.
Thank you for
100%.
letting me know.
Great. So, so I want to just, so that person at the bottom of the screen there, where it says Jim Morgan, and you can see my dogs, that's my dummy. I can't do Zoom from my office, but I wasn't sure I was going to be able to put it on YouTube from the iPad. So I am, so my office computer is just a Zoom to YouTube machine. So, all right. So I'm
Before you
so
go
grateful.
on, what are your dogs' names?
The one that's in front with the black ears is Puck, and the one you kind of can't see is Rosie.
See your dogs.
Yeah, and she's a Blenheim. Yep, and
Oh, Pup,
if
is
you-
that P-U-P or?
P-U-C-K, like a
Oh,
hockey
Puck.
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 Yeah, my ex is a big time hockey player, and I actually played hockey from the age of 5 until the age of 51, maybe. And both of the boys played hockey, so you know, we were one of those rink rat kind of families. So when we got the dog, we were in the full madness of hockey. So so that's, but it was also because we were listening to a book that was a takeoff on fairy tales, and the funniest character in that book was Puck from Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. So it's sort of half Shakespeare, half hockey. So excuse me 1 second. I'm just going to text someone that I thought was going to be on the call, and I want to.
I counted 14 or something on your email.
Right, there was a bunch of people on the email, but a bunch of them are not able to make it at this time, so it's going to be a little bit complicated. So we're going to figure out this stuff as we go along.
So it's next Thursday at 4?
So we'll get there, Ellen. We'll get there. Okay, it's gonna. We'll just let's take one step at a time, I think. All right, great. So welcome everyone. So so today's session is going to be primarily about introductions, about getting to know a little bit about. I'll tell you a little bit about me and my journey. I want to hear a little bit about you and your journey, and most importantly, I want to learn from you what each of you wants to learn from this experience. My goal is not to do sort of a one-size-fits-all romp through various parts of the Jewish tradition, but to really try to build in individualized learning, ideally with other members of the group if there are overlapping interests, but also with teachers that will not just be me. So we have there are people who are part of the Worship and Study Minion who have offered to tutor folks. We are working right now. I'm hoping that Mariana, my colleague who sits in Dedham in Newbridge, will be on, because we have with Harvard Hillel, we have started, and some of you in this group, I think Anne at least, have been involved in that program, where we've set up what are called Chevrutas, study partnerships between members of CCD and Harvard Hillel. And so we're thinking about trying to figure out how to make these two programs kind of function with one another. So what I'm really hoping is that we have a kind of a larger network of learners and that this will sort of build a community of this group, but also we will have our tentacles into other communities, and really have and everyone will really feel like they're part of this overall thing. Hello, Ellen. So
Hey.
it's great. We have Ellen from Cambridge and we have Ellen from Brookline. All right, great. So let me just say a word about the genesis of this idea, and then if we the reason I'm holding off on the introductions is because if a few more people come on, I want to make sure that they get to hear everybody also. So, oh my gosh, there's another dog. Aura has a dog. Oh my gosh.
This is Bilbo.
Oh, cute.
Oh my word.
That
what
looks like
cutie.
a French bulldog.
It's a pug.
It's a pug.
pug,
I get
yeah.
them mixed up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an adorable sweetheart.
Yeah.
All right.
And Nora
So-
is here too, guarding my peanut butter sandwich.
Oh, good,
yeah.
good. Nora is is a black lab, as you can see.
Oh, cute.
And
Where?
her I don't know, how do you call Emmy, Lori, in relation to Nora?
She's the successor. The
Yes,
successor
okay,
therapy
so-
dog.
Exactly.
Oh.
So Nora is the successor to Emmy, who was my introduction via Lori to the idea of dog therapy, which is the reason. And so Lori is the inspiration for why I bring my dogs to CCB, because I realize there's many people who will talk to a dog who won't talk to me. So it's so it's very, very good. Very
But
good.
does
Nora-
the dog know Russian?
Yes,
we
the dog. They do.
Mine
Here's my
doesn't, and
little
it's-
puppy I got for Hanukkah.
Oh, look at that one.
He's a corgi.
Great.
named
as
her
soon as
after my
COVID permits, we'll be back at 100 Center.
God willing, this will happen sooner than later. So
I named her
so
after their late corgi, Kaya.
yes. Oh, got it. So the genesis of this program was that my colleague and friend Rabbi Lior, who is the rabbi up at Jack Satter House, had a bat mitzvah program going for 12 women that were living up that lived up in Revere, and they and here's Mariana. Great. And so Mariana, this is the group we were waiting for you to make introductions. So I've launched into my little spiel about why we're doing this, and then we'll do introductions. Okay. So Rabbi Lior ended up running into as you can imagine, into the pandemic, and she really didn't know how she was going to manage doing the bat mitzvah. But Rabbi Lior is remarkable at making videos, and so she ended up making a video bat mitzvah. Everyone had their chance to do their piece of the spiel, and then she edited it together, and it was just a remarkable thing for the community, not just for the women who became bat mitzvah, but also for the community, because Jack Satter House had been so affected by the COVID virus so early in the pandemic. So it was a real just community moment. And so actually then Mayim, I think, said to me, I don't know, Mayim, if it was because you had heard news of that or if there was some other reason, but Mayim expressed an interest in becoming a bat mitzvah. And I said, if Lior can do it, I probably can. I mean, it won't be as good because it's me and not Lior, but it'll be something. And so I said, well, let's think about this. So so last year's big online learning for me was the reading of the book of Samuel, which was suggested by someone who lives in Mayim's building. And so I'm always excited to act on suggestions from residents. So I figured let's put this together. And we are, and I, as some of you know, some of you may not know, I'm also the rabbi of the Worship and Study Minyan, which is part of Harvard Hillel. And so Lori, who's on this call, and Ellen, who's on this call, come from that group. And and I figured there may be some people, and I was correct. There was another person who was interested, but just can't see herself clear to making the commitment. She's afraid she won't be able to meet the obligation. And then I also extended the invitation to people who have done volunteering at CCB, and so that's how Mayora came to be on the call, which is really great. So that's the reason, the sort of how we got to this place. So what I already mentioned that what I envision really is people being part of a community, but also really focusing in on what they want to be learning. So someone else has joined us. Who's there with us?
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. Just let me know who you are.
Oh, this is Kent.
Oh, Kent, great. Oh, wonderful. Great, Kent. All right, I'm gonna change your name here.
Something just happened with my being on Zoom. I'm not quite sure.
There, Ellen.
Can you still see us, Ellen?
No, I think I'll start off where it takes only a minute.
Well,
We see you.
okay, that's fine.
Oh,
That's
wait, there you are again.
There we are.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm so glad. Okay.
Why am I
All right,
only
so
seeing
Ken-
9 people?
You only see 9 people probably because you have put your Zoom settings to hide people who are not
I suspect someone
who are
else
not,
has been using. I suspect someone else may have been using my computer. Got
could
it.
be, right. So we have Judy and Kent who are on the phone. Kent is also a member of the Worship and Study Minyan. And I believe, Kent, tell me if I've got this wrong. Your kids had their B'nai Mitzvah at Worship and Study, but you never got to have one. So
Right. Yeah.
great. All right. Lovely. Okay, so we are. So as I said, the goal is to and the broad range of things that people can learn, right, include learning to read and read Hebrew both silently and out loud for the sake of reading the Bible or for the sake of reading the prayer book. Those are sort of distinct versions of Hebrew, so it's
Hi,
generally a good
Judy.
idea.
I'm at a meeting now. I'll call you back. There.
All right, and so it's generally good to start with one or the other. There's also just the goal of learning to do, so it's sort of the next level goal would be learning to chant the Torah or the hold on one second, to chant the Torah or a haftarah, which is the prophetic portion that we read every week in the synagogue. And then another learning goal might be to be able to compose a Devar Torah to present in front of a congregation, to sort of act as a teacher, which for me was one of the greatest. When I first became Jewish, it was one of the first things that I really, really wanted to do because I'm a sort of a teacher by nature, and so it was very exciting to be able to start doing that. And then obviously there could be, someone wants to do all 3. It might be a little bit much to do in 4 or 5 months, but or there may be other learning goals that I haven't thought of. So I think what I would like to do now is I will stop talking for a little bit, and I'll let everyone. We'll go around the Zoom room, and I'll ask everyone to give a very brief introduction to who they are. We have actually more people than I thought we would have, and we don't have that much time. So I'll ask you to keep your introductions brief, and then to share with me and Mariana what you are interested in learning, and what are your priorities. and you can talk about your personal, what your personal goals are, but also I would love to hear what specific topics you really think would be important for you to have as our communal learning. Some examples might be, Rabbi Jim, I go to the synagogue and I have no idea why we say the prayers we say and what's the order and what do they mean and blah, blah, blah. It can be that. It can be, I really would love to sort of get a handle on what the holidays are, right? Or what is kashrut all about and why do we do it and how do we do it? So any kind of questions like that might be a good topic for one of our classes. I'm happy to come up with topics to teach, but I would love if they actually were topics that people wanted to learn about rather than things that, I'm the rabbi and I know what you need to know, right? So I'm less interested in being that kind of a rabbi. So let's start with Heva, and so you need to unmute yourself, Heva.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So my interest is to,
So just say your name first and a little bit, just a tiny little bit about yourself.
okay. My public name is Eva. My Jewish name is Heva. My mother was not Jewish. My father was. I converted so that it would be kosher. And I've moved to the community in June. So I'm getting myself organized here at CCB. And I have always wanted to do my bat mitzvah.
Great. So what are the things you're interested in?
Hebrew. I don't know Hebrew.
Got it.
I attend services every morning.
Okay.
For the with a minyan for my mother's passing in December.
Okay.
And so we have wonderful group, and we have a wonderful Gabbai who presents translations for us, for those of us who don't know, but I'd rather not have to depend on translations. I would like to be able to do Ashrei, for instance, reading the prayer.
Exactly. And what shul is it that you're affiliated with?
TBC.
TBC.
Very convenient, right next door.
I was going to say, could be much more convenient than that.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. All right, good. So let's go to Anne.
Okay, well, I actually did a B'nai Mitzvah in the late 70s. And we had about 26 people in the class, which was made up of people, if they'd had a bar bat mitzvah, most of the women hadn't, but some of the men who had a bar mitzvah were in the class because it had been so long. And I understand you can do it at your 13th year, your 26th year and what have you. I'm not quite to the right age, but I've studied and studied and studied, but I have not learned to chant Torah. And I'd like to try to learn a little bit of that. I don't expect to be able to do very much, but I did study Haftorah chanting, and I can sort of do it, but I haven't done it for a long time.
Great. It's a wonderful, wonderful goal. Sandy. Sandy, you're muted.
Did she leave?
So she's
Nope,
there.
she's just muted.
Oh, okay.
Trying, I think.
See, while you're finding your unmute, we'll go to Lori.
Okay, I've been a member of the Worship and Study Minyan since I think 1990. I joined more for the study than the worship. I am interested in Judaism and in Hebrew and in Jewish things, but have never really been that attracted to ritual. Sorry about that, Jim.
Okay.
I never had a bat mitzvah. I came from a family where my brother was bar mitzvahed and his sisters had no religious training. I studied at the Hebrew College Ulpan for 10 years. I was quite fluent in Hebrew, but I never learned to read. I don't know a vowel from a hole in the wall.
Oh,
So reading the prayer book and by extension, learning to chant is what I'm interested in. Though I also am terrified of standing up in public, so I don't know that I would ever actually do it.
But even being able to chant the Torah at home, or to chant in your head along with the person who's chanting up in front of the room, is just a great joy.
I know enough that I can follow when someone's chanting, but if you have me facing the words without someone else, pronunciation is not going to come to me.
Great. So I think, so it sounds like there's a little bit of an emphasis on Hebrew, and there's some sort of variety of levels here. Great, Lori. Thank you so much. Meora? Actually, I forgot Sandy. So let's go back to Sandy, and then we'll go back to Meora.
You forgot me, Rabbi Jim.
No, Ellen, I haven't forgotten you. I just haven't gotten you yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sandy.
I came from a grandmother who lived with us who was very religious. My parents were not. And I went from the time I was 6 until I was 16 to the Arbiter Ring. And the emphasis was on Yiddish culture and learning. I never had a bat mitzvah because women, I'm 84, didn't count. And I fight that to this day, and I fight it with the religion and with the prayers. But since this is so convenient, I would hear various backgrounds. Zoom is a great leveler.
Yes, it's great. So, Sandy, what's the thing that you'd be most interested in learning?
What would I be most? Let's say enchanting the Haftorah.
Great. Phenomenal. All right, great. Ellen.
Oh, my name is Ellen.
Ellen from Brookline.
Oh.
Ellen from Brookline, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Ellen. I live at 100 Center Street in Brookline, and I attended the Harvard Hillel for many years while I was studying at the Harvard Extension School. And I attended the Reform Minyan and the Orthodox Minyan, and that's where I met Rabbi Jim. And I would like to improve my knowledge of Hebrew. I know some Hebrew, but I'd like to improve my knowledge of Hebrew and also the stories of the Bible.
Great. Okay, lovely. Let's see, Meora.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meora. I'm a member of KI. I've been in the Jewish space for about 15, 16 years, but I just converted this past year. I really, really want to learn how to read Hebrew, how to read Torah, how to chant Torah, and I can read right now, but very, very slowly. And I've been just leaning on transliterations a whole lot. And at this point, I can read portions of my daily prayers in Hebrew, and then I just have to switch to English. So I'm just kind of one foot in, 1 foot out. And kind of pairing that, I just would really love to be comfortable with what goes on with leading services. And not that I necessarily would do it, but I would if I had to, I would want to feel really comfortable doing so. And I think in line with that, something I think would be really helpful for some of the community-based learning is just a walkthrough of the choreography of what happens like up at the bima, like when people are reading Torah, because I feel like I get it just based on observation, but I've never actually had someone walk me through, okay, this is where they stand and that now this guy rotates over here. Like I've never had that walkthrough, so I'm just kind of assuming. So I'd love to walk through that. And then another topic that I think would be really interesting is that I've never really had in like one single conversation, just an overview of all the different denominations, just kind of the major movements. And I feel pretty comfortable in, in terms of like what's going on from like Reform to Orthodox, but I would love to learn about like, what is renewal? What is Reconstructionist? And like kind of have that overview in one conversation would be like a great way to kind of get a glimpse at it all.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Ellen from Cambridge.
I'm very ignorant. I had no training whatsoever in anything to do with Judaism, even though my family was Jewish. My mother's family was pretty much uninterested in religion, although a great aunt had the Seder, and they were interested in culture more than religion. But I saw them maybe once a year at Seder. But I also was not permitted to think about a bat mitzvah because my father's father said that was not right. Girls don't get that. And it wasn't that it made me angry. It made me feel like I didn't belong. And I read books. I still read books. I'm interested in Jewish history. But I also don't know anything about what we say on Friday night and on Saturday, even though I have been going with great pleasure to the Hillel, and I will continue to do so.
Great. So an exploration of the liturgy is, and that, and for many, I mean, I'll tell you just a snippet on that topic, right, is that I used to, when I was in rabbinical school, as someone who had converted to Judaism, I was really, and I had converted in the Reform movement. So when I was in rabbinical school and was presented with the traditional prayer book, I was completely, as you can imagine, overwhelmed. So what I did my first year of rabbinical school is I basically just carried around the traditional prayer book everywhere I went. And if I couldn't fall asleep at night, I would just read the prayer book, sort of endlessly. And so that was a huge learning goal, and really for me is I think one of the primary foundations for my Jewish life, because in many ways, right, the prayer book is the sort of the foundational document, in some ways even more than the Torah, and it's because it's something that people read every day, right, and so it is really a great source of Jewish knowledge. Just even if you're reading it in English, it's a huge source of information. All right, great. So Mariana, I'm going to skip over you for just one moment, and we'll get the other three women, and then we'll come back to you. Okay. So Mayim.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for getting this group together, Rabbi Jim.
Welcome.
I've become recently much more fascinated by the language as a language. I want to be able to read much better. I can kind of follow prayers and, keep up. We're on this paragraph now, but that's a long way from actually being able to read it all. And that would be my objective. And I found this book at the Israeli bookstore, and I've been working on it. It's really fun. If you need to start from the very beginning, this is a good place to start. I was raised in a Reformed Jewish family, which we had some amount of observances. I loved the more mystical parts of Judaism that I discovered in Jewish youth group in high school and Israeli dancing and stuff like that. When I hit college, I found that the Judaism I'd been taught was pretty much just liberal humanism, very reform. So I moved away from it for a long time. I was in much other religious studies. I have a degree in Chinese and Japanese. I've studied lots of Buddhist writings and all the Chinese texts and stuff like that. And I love languages. So I'm interested in Hebrew as a magical, mystical language that's part of my heritage that I want to be able to use more. And I would also credit the Netflix series Stiesel for making me want to use like common everyday Hebrew phrases. I'm just loving understanding that. So toda
That's
rava.
awesome. That's great. No, and I love the idea of you know, Hebrew as a vehicle of mysticism. So so you know, the back when Madonna was doing Kabbalah, right? The Kabbalah Center would say all you need is just to have this you know, this volume of the Zohar, which costs, you know, whatever thousands of dollars, so that we can, you know, make our money. All you need to do is own it and put it on your shelf. You don't actually have to be able to read the Aramaic or understand anything that's in there. But I, you know, I think that sort of misses the point. I'm happy to try to address issues of mysticism, or probably better, to find one of my teachers who can come in and actually do justice to the topic. All right, great. So thank you. Judy, you're up, but you're muted.
I was graduated of the Yeshiva of Flatbush. My name is Judy. My Hebrew name is Yehudis. I'm a graduate of the Yeshiva of Flatbush. My mother was a Hebrew teacher. My father was assistant administrator of the Yeshiva of Flatbush. I used to be a nursery school teacher in the Bialik school. I'd love to be bar mitzvah. I never was, because I was an Orthodox family, and I was a bit rusty in my Hebrew, and I'd love to learn how to chant.
Great. Chant Torah or Haftarah? Do you have a preference?
What?
Chant the Torah or the Haftarah? Do you have a preference?
Haftarah.
Haftarah. Okay. Great. Lovely, Judy. Thank you. And finally, Kent.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, definitely you can hear me. Okay, so thank you for all of your stories. It's fascinating hearing everyone's backgrounds. So I did not grow up in a Jewish family. I grew up in the Bible Belt South in a Christian family, but I spent a lot of time in Florida, so my best friends were Jewish, and I spent a lot of time at their homes. So grew up, my daughter's family, father's family is and was Jewish. And so I raised her going to Hebrew school. A lot of it was because I wanted to honor her grandmother. And then when it was time for her to become a bat mitzvah, I converted because to make it official, I wanted to do it anyway, but it was at that time that I did the conversion. And so in the beginning, as much as I loved Jewish culture, the services were so foreign to me because of the language, because all the rituals, it was all brand new. But at this point in my life, I've been to many services. I've been to high holidays. I've been through many Shabbos dinners. So a lot of the ritual aspects have become a lot more comfortable to me. And I always plan to do my own bat mitzvah, and now finally is a good time for me. And I'm predominantly interested in learning to be fluent in the language, both everyday Hebrew, but also Hebrew for the services. I'm passionate about learning languages as well. And, you know, Latin-based and Germanic languages are pretty easy for me at this point. But obviously Hebrew is a whole different alphabet. It's a whole different thing. I do have a lot of the language books that my children used when they were going to Hebrew school, and I have attempted to practice them from time to time. So I have a basic understanding of like ABCs and nursery rhymes and all that, but I have a lot of work to do. So
Great. All right, good. So we'll, so it sounds like, you know, modern Hebrew is sort of beyond the scope of what I think I can offer here, but Lori had mentioned the Hebrew College Opan, which is a pretty great program and a great source of complementary learning to what we can do here. All right, so I'm going to ask. Thank you, everybody. This is a really rich menu, and we'll have to do a fair amount of
You didn't talk to Mariana.
we run into stuff again. Sorry, some construction workers just ran over my garden.
That's okay. Ken, I'm just going to put you on mute so you can not worry about
Yes,
it.
do that. That's okay.
Yeah. Great. So so now I'm going to introduce, I'm going to let Mariana introduce herself, what her role is, and to whatever degree, Mariana, you want to sort of join in the learning, that's great. Or if you're just here as, you know, as with your administrative hat on, that's also fine. So you'll, without any further ado, Mariana Mapes.
Hi, everybody. Very nice to see you. As Jim said, I'm Mariana Mapes. I work at Hebrew Senior Life. I'll share my professional and my personal hats briefly. I've worked at HSL for a little over 3 years now, and my role is really that I'm the creative lead for program design for community engagement and volunteers. Really, you know, my focus for the past 3 years has been on multi-generational programming and bringing in groups of students of all ages, as well as individual young people into our communities for all kinds of educational experiences, lots of really deep one-on-one immersion, also music programming, holiday celebration, literacy program, all different ways to connect young people and seniors. So the kind of lens that I'm bringing to this is thinking about where it might be interesting and meaningful and helpful to involve some students, likely Harvard Hillel students, in your B'nai Mitzvah journeys as adults. And many students are also in very different places with their own Jewish journeys. So, you know, it may be that there's some alignment between learning goals that you have and students have, and where there's interest on both sides, it could be very cool to connect you. So not a fully formed thought, but that's a little bit of what I'm listening for. And then on the personal side, I can, like Lori, I can vouch for the Ulpan program at Hebrew College. It's awesome. I've been taking classes through them for the past year now. And it's wonderful if modern Hebrew is on your list. Like some of you, I was not born into a Jewish family and I was not raised Jewish, but have been thinking about conversion since I was probably 10 years old. And I am finally, I haven't even connected with you, Jim, about this. I'm finally taking the plunge and beginning this process through TBZ. So
Great.
That's really exciting. And there are a lot of elements of your own paths that are very, very, very similar and feel familiar to mine. So that's all to say. This project is definitely relevant professionally, but personally too. So thank you for letting me listen in and kind of let my wheels turn.
Good.
Yeah, great. So glad you're here, Mariana. And of course, you're always welcome to join any of our learning sessions if they work with your schedule. Not wanting to put the cart before the horse and having you let you have your bat mitzvah before you're even converted, but just to say that that in a sense, right, a person becomes bar, bat, or bar mitzvah if you don't identify as either of the sort of cisgender categories. A person gains that status at 12 or 13, depending on how you consider yourself. And so in a sense, a person who converts is the first time they make an aliyah to the Torah, they're having their bar mitzvah. But the point is here, right, is to sort of formalize that with additional learning, right, and with an additional sort of what we call in the tradition a siyum, right, a sort of a final celebration, right. We've come to the end of a component of learning, and we're going to celebrate that, and so that's really a bar mitzvah is a siyum, right, the siyum of that person's learning as a small child. It's not really into adulthood. It's really into adolescence. There's a difference between a bat mitzvah and someone who's an adult, which is why we say adult bar mitzvah, right? We're not going to become an adult. We're not going to become adolescents, through this process. I mean, some of us may have some sort of adolescent, attributes already, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so just a little bit about my own story. And so who you're dealing with, and then I think we can just talk a little bit about this week's Torah portion, if we have time, before we close, and then we'll if we have time to do that, but we'll also talk about next steps. All right, so my story in a very in the very brief version of it is that when I was a teenager, I really tried hard to be a religious Christian, and my parents are pretty devout Episcopalians, and we were always churchgoers. And I sort of struggled a little bit with not wanting to go to church, but not like my sister, who was, considered church stupid. I didn't necessarily consider it stupid. I just was not that always into it. But I did love being in the choir. And then when I was a teenager, I fell in love with the idea of being a minister. I looked at the ministers who were there at church I was in, and I said, these guys get to do everything. Right, they get to be there at the times of greatest emotional valence in people's lives. They get to be sort of public intellectuals. They get to be musicians. They get to be sort of community leaders. All this sort of stuff. And so I had this idea that I should be a minister. The only problem was that I really wasn't a Christian, which is really a problem. If you're going to be a minister, it's one thing to be a rabbi who's kind of a little bit of an atheist. It's another thing to be an Episcopalian minister who's a little bit of an atheist. It doesn't really compute. So I had to put that dream on hold, and fast forward to my late 20s, when my ex-wife and I were deciding to get married. She's Jewish by birth, and obviously I was not, and I hadn't really considered a conversion until I realized, from a halachic meaning the Jewish legal reality, that my kids would be Jewish. And for whatever reason, it seemed very important for me that my kids and I be the same religion, which actually turns out to be true. It is really very important to me even now, that they're Jewish and I'm Jewish. We're Jewish in very different ways, but that's not so surprising. So I converted. We converted before we were married, so that I would have a Jewish wedding. And lo and behold, as I was in the process of converting, so careful, Mariana. As I was in the process of converting, all of those feelings that I had as a teenager about ministers began to pop up about rabbis. I was like, oh my gosh, they get to do all this cool stuff. And so my poor wife, who had wanted to be married to a nice, Christian man, ended up as a rebbitzin. It was the bait and switch of the century. It's among the reasons we're no longer together, but it's not the only reason, obviously. But anyway, so I became a rabbi. I started rabbinical school relatively soon after I converted. And luckily, I think for me, I didn't work as a rabbi for about 4 years after rabbinical school, because really I was a rabbi really before I was fully Jewish, and so I had a job I worked in the Jewish Federation, and I did international partnership work with Israel and with Ukraine. And so I got to meet this unbelievably diverse group of Jews from all over the place, and Ethiopian Jews and Hasidic Jews and secular Ukrainian Jews, secular Israeli Jews from all over the place. So really, that was my Jewish education for the 6 years that I worked in that role. And then I took a year to retrain myself as a chaplain, and then I started at Hebrew Senior Life, believe it or not, in 2015. So this is I'm in my 6th year already, in the middle of my 6th year at Hebrew Senior Life. So and as I mentioned in the materials about this program, I was in the first class of rabbinical students at Hebrew College. And so this is when on June 1st, that will be my 13th anniversary on the Gregorian calendar, at least, of my ordination. And so I thought 13 years as a rabbi, this is my only chance to mark 13 years of anything. So here's my chance. I'll put together a group of people, and we'll make a community together of learners, and connect with various communities outside of the smaller group, and we'll see what happens. And so I'm going to find. I'll try to figure out what the equivalent Shabbat is for June 1st of 2008. And we'll try to set our siyum on that day, so it'll give us a time limit, and we're going to be learning what we can learn within that time. And I want to make very clear that this is really about people's own goals and their own motivations and their own accomplishments. It's not about any kind of outside judging of what you've managed to accomplish. It's all about what you want to do, and setting your own goals and accomplishing them to the degree to which you feel you can. And so there's no, in this process, I love Mariana's term of it's a journey, right? This is a journey, and and since it's a journey through time rather than through space, right? There's a beginning and there's an end, right? But there's no one who will not complete the journey, right? If you stay with us, the only real sort of requirement / obligation, right, is that you stay with us for the entire time, and you make a commitment to either being on the calls when they happen, or watching them on YouTube after the fact, and that you meet with some regularity with your rabbinic mentor. So rabbinical student Rachel Talley Kaplan will be joining me for this effort, and we will sort of divvy up the folks. If there's, and I was not expecting such a big group, so I might need to see if I can recruit someone else. We'll see. We'll sort of see how that goes. And so each person will have probably every other week. You should plan on having a one-on-one conversation with your rabbinic mentor. And so that's another sort of important part of the program, I think, to keep you sort of accountable to yourself, right? Whatever the goals are that you choose, right? You'll meet with your mentor every 2 weeks, and neither Rachel nor I, I mean, I don't know Rachel that well, but because we've only really met, I think we've met in person once or twice, and then the rest of the time it's only been by Zoom. So, but I don't think that she's any more of a taskmaster than I am. It's really just about making sure that you're sort of progressing along the path the way that you want to be, and for us to help you, to support you, and to help you figure out ways around roadblocks as they pop up. I will also be connecting you, I'm hoping, right, as Mariana said, with people from outside this group who are going to be willing to do certain types of teaching. So that is the place where I'm going to have to ask for a lot of forbearance and flexibility from this group, because it is going to be, I think, a little bit complicated to figure out everybody's schedules, to make sure that everybody can sort of be where they need to be when they need to be there. And I understand it's pandemic time, maybe things are a little bit less crazy than they otherwise would be, but still I know that that's going to be complicated. So just know that that we are going to try to offer you as much support as we can, but there will be a fair amount of self-directed learning, right? That, if your goal is to learn to chant Torah, for instance, right? We have a wonderful person in the worship and study meeting who's remarkably adept at helping people learn how to do that. But most of that learning is going to come from you sitting in your apartment and caterwauling. That's what my wife used to call it when I would practice my Torah learning. Are you caterwauling again? So you might, your neighbors might not be too happy with you, but just don't do it too loud, and you should be okay. And so I think that's it for my spiel. Next week we will have a session. The 1 o'clock at Friday time is really hard for a number of people. Someone had suggested a weekend, and I'm just not willing to commit to teaching every weekend from now until June. So we'll alternate Sunday sessions with Thursday sessions for now, for the larger group. If there's anyone on the group who cannot make either of them, please let me know that, and we will. Again, I'm going to ask this group's forbearance as we try to sort of balance things out, try to figure out a time that we can make sure that everyone can make at least every other session. Yeah, go ahead, Mayim.
Rabbi Jim, I think you just said you would alternate Sunday and Thursday. Are we not going to have the Friday afternoon class?
Well, at this point, the Friday afternoon class was completely impossible for 2 or 3 people who really wanted to take the thing, which is why they're not here. I'm happy to consider, right, that we could do. There's just a limit to the complexity that I can manage. We could do Friday at 1. We could do Friday at 1 and Sunday at 4. Right?
I can't do Sunday.
That meets the needs of this many people if we do Friday at 1.
Right. So this many people on and so is there anyone here for whom Friday at 1 would generally represent a problem, and you were able to do it today? Is there anyone who wouldn't be able to make Friday at 1? Because this is a big group. I was not expecting this many people to be on this call. All right. Great. So I think we can stick with the Friday at 1 time.
Thank you.
All right, we can stick with the Friday at 1 time, and I will, from the other folks, I will figure out an alternative time. All right, so I will figure out I would love not to have any weekend times, and save myself the need to commit to working every weekend. So I think what we'll do is I will start with the Thursday at 4. How many people can do Thursday at 4? So everybody but Ann, it looks like. Okay,
No,
so
I
everybody but
can't.
Ann can do Thursday.
That would be
Who's
hard
that?
for me.
Ellen Soro can't do it either. Okay. All right. So I will
Not
try to find
regularly.
another time. Say again?
I couldn't do it regularly.
Right, right.
That's my
For the
common
big
study.
class or
Sunday
for
time
the
gonna be
one-on-one?
Friday 1 is fine.
Whoa, okay. I'm sorry. Too many people are talking at once here. So, and which Zoom is not good at, and I'm making it even worse. Okay. Ellen, go ahead. Ellen Khan.
I can do Sunday at 4, but not between 12:30 and 3. But Sunday is at 4.
That would work for you. Okay, great. How about
Sunday at
so what
4,
I'm gonna
but not between 12:30 and 3.
perfect. Thank you. And mine, what were you gonna say?
We're talking about a once-a-week group class and then
Yeah.
also a more one-on-one. You're trying to schedule one-on-ones with people?
Right. So the one-on-ones would be scheduled individually with your rabbinic mentor, right? And they would happen, depending on how many people are actually end up in the course. It would probably be every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, depending on what our schedules can manage. And if I can find another rabbi to be a mentor, then so much the better. But I'm not sure that I'll be able to do that.
Is Rabbi Lior going to help with this?
She wasn't, but now that we have this many people, I'm thinking of asking her. But I don't know that she has the time. So that's the reality. I just don't know. Rabbis by and large are a little bit smushed these days. So we will see what we can do. All right, great. So we will work out the scheduling as much as possible over email. And I will. So before I ask for questions, and I know we're getting close to time, but Helen came on the call. So Helen, everyone else had a chance to introduce themselves, say a little bit about themselves and what their interests are. And that's a great idea.
I'm sorry I missed it.
That's okay. That's okay. You can look. Yeah. You can look at it later on YouTube. But
I will.
But
I will.
Probably the other group will. The rest of this group probably will not be wanting to look at YouTube, and So why don't you tell your spiel now, and that way everyone will be able to.
Okay.
So the question is who you are, and then what are your main learning goals for the program?
Well, who am I? This is my Jewish world was very culturally Jewish, and because my father worked post World War II for Jewish immigration all over the world, and we traveled and lived and all, but we weren't a very religious family. So in my later years, my identity, I think, is extremely strong, but I've never been that comfortable in services. And I think that I've been going for almost 9 years now or whatever to worship and study, which at times feels, I love a lot of it, but I don't, I would like to be able probably to read the Hebrew more and to understand more of what I'm reading, the background, the history. And I mean, I've read the Old Testament and all that, but I have a lot to learn. And so that's part of my goal, is also figuring out what to learn in this time period.
Perfect. That's great. I love that. And I it's such that Helen has sort of put her finger on something that's so important, right, about Jewish learning, right, is that there's this tension in our tradition between learning with a goal, right?
Yeah.
And learning lishma, it's called, learning for learning's sake, right? And
Yeah.
one of the most beautiful things about learning lishma is that you often sort of figure out what your goal was after you've met it, in a sense,
Yeah.
right? It's a little bit of letting your ego go, right? And allowing, you could call it, you could call it your subconscious, you could call it God, you could call it the spirit, right? Letting the spirit guide you and figuring out, what it is that I needed to learn. And go ahead. Oh, I guess Anne was just leaving. All right, so we're at time, so I want to respect people's time. If you need to go, please just drop off. But if anyone has questions or concerns that they would like me to address before, I am willing to stay over a little bit in order to answer questions if there are any. Otherwise, I will be in touch by email, and we will try to figure out the logistical aspects of this, and pooling people into groups, and so on and so forth.
So the next
every Friday,
meeting?
every Friday at 1 o'clock.
Well, wait a second. I'm sorry. Two people. There's two people at a time again. So why don't you shake your hand or raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah, go ahead, Helen.
So is our next meeting next Thursday at 4 o'clock?
You know what? I'm gonna say I'm not sure. I think yes, there will be a meeting. There will be a meeting. Let's say that there will be a meeting at 4 o'clock next Thursday, but that might not be a regular time. And then let's say for this group, because I know that there'll be people who aren't going to be able to make the 4 o'clock time, that maybe we'll double up next week, and we'll have the Friday at 1 as well. But the email will make that clear.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have everybody's email address?
Yes, I would. So what I'll do is I will compile everyone's email address and phone numbers when we have a list. I'll make a roster and share it so everyone can be in contact with one another. Mine, go ahead.
I'm still not clear if you've settled on we are going to have class once a week on Friday at 1.
We will definitely have class. The question that I need to figure out is so there's a balancing act here between wanting to be accessible and then also not wanting to overwhelm people. So I think what we'll need to figure out is I need to figure out if I'm going to do sort of a second group, right? Thank you, Maora. If I'm going to do a second group that would meet on at a different time, and that we'll have sort of
on Friday,
right? So it could be this group that meets every Friday at 1, right? And then there would be the alternative group that can't meet at Friday at 1. We'll find a different time, or we can do this alternating thing. But the alternating thing, I'm a little worried about it in terms of just the logistics of it.
Yeah.
So since we have this many people at 1 o'clock on Friday, I'm thinking maybe we'll just stick with the 1 o'clock on Friday, and we'll. But again, what I said to Helen stands. This information will be conveyed by email. I will let everybody know ASAP how this is going to run.
I will expect to see you every week on Friday. Keep that in mind.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? Okay, we all set? All right, so thank you, everybody. I'm very excited. Nice to see everybody. Nice to hear your voice, Judy. And we will catch up next Monday. Catch up next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.